Raiders make sure they'll be managing the game differently in 2025. Plus, Matt Stafford, more reality than rumor. That plus more on Friday's edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast for February 28th, 2025.
You are Locked On Raiders, your daily Las Vegas Raiders podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome in, Raider Nation, to another edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast. Thank you so much for making the show your first listen of the day. Definitely appreciate you, as always, wherever you're catching the podcast, whether it's wherever you find your favorite podcast. That's great. If you're checking us out on the YouTube page, they appreciate that as well. Of course, each and every day we come to you on the YouTube page. It's because of my man Ari, who does a fantastic job behind the scenes, making sure we're looking good and sounding good. We appreciate him and all his fine work behind the scenes. Shout him out. He's on Twitter at Ari Produces. You can hit me up as well at your boy Q254. And normally we have the Locked On Raider podcast voicemail line. You want to be a part of the show, 707-654-4693. Next week, we'll be back in the home studio, Studio Q. Actually, on Monday, won't be in Studio Q. I'll actually be in Portland as Little Q has his senior night at Portland State. So I'm looking forward to that. So basically one more show on the road. We'll have Monday's show, and then Tuesday's show will come to you from the road. We'll figure it out next week. Don't worry about that. We'll get back to your calls and texts coming up in segment number 3. We'll do that sometime next week early on when we kind of get things back in track and back in line, since we've been here in Indianapolis at the Scouting Combine all week long. So what we got for you, Malachi Moore, defensive back from Alabama, had an opportunity to catch up with him as DB safeties. They were at the podium earlier on Thursday, and all the activities began on Lucas Oil Stadium field on Thursday as we're recapping Thursday's day at the Scouting Combine. So you'll hear from Malachi Moore. You'll hear from him coming up. Segment number 3 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Defensive back that's going to go high in April's draft. Segment number 2, this Matt Stafford thing is becoming more reality than it is rumor as far as I'm concerned. I've been very lukewarm on the Matt Stafford situation. More twists and turns into the saga when it comes to the Matt Stafford-Tom Brady meetup. Right? Is it tampering? Is it all good? What's it going to take to get him? Are the Raiders really interested? What's it going to cost? All that conversation we'll have coming up in segment number 2 as Matt Stafford completely took over the Scouting Combine all week long here in Indianapolis. Here in segment number 1, we'll give you news and notes of the day just around the NFL and including with the silver and black, and we'll jump right into it after I tell you about the title sponsor of the show, which is FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. It's as simple as that. I'll tell you more about them later on in the show. But off top, I mentioned that the Raiders plan on managing the game differently. Yeah, that was the tease. What does that mean? Well, the Raiders have officially moved on from Matt Sheldon. He was Antonio Pierce's game management consultant last year. He was previously the team's director of football research and strategy from 2022 to 2024. So all the time when you're watching the game during 2024 and you're like, why would Antonio Pierce throw the challenge flag there? Why would he call a timeout there? Why wouldn't he call a timeout there? Challenges, close calls, this, that, fourth down decisions, all the in-game strategy that was question and trust and believe. There was plenty of questions when it came to in-game decisions with Antonio Pierce's only year as the head coach. Well, a lot of that goes back to Matt Sheldon, who was put in place to be the game management consultant last season with Antonio Pierce. Well, the Raiders officially moved on from him. So, I know that Antonio Pierce, I'm not trying to make an excuse for him for his bad decisions. He said all the time that he, made the final call, but all coaches, for the most part, have their guy that they lean on, their game management consultant. And for Antonio Pierce, it was Matt Sheldon, and clearly he was the wrong guy. I actually heard a story that was relayed to me on Thursday. It was pretty funny that there was a time when AP threw the red flag, the challenge flag, and in his ear, he's hearing, throw the flag, throw the flag, throw the flag, hurry up and throw the flag. And right when he throws the flag, he hears in his ear, oh, no, hold on, don't throw the, and it's already thrown. So it was one of those that they just weren't good, and Matt Sheldon in particular was not good at his job. And I know that he was calling the question during the regular season. People were like, wait, hold on. This guy came from, football research and strategy. He's never been the game management consultant. Why is he in that place? Now, that's on Antonio Pierce for hiring him. That's for people agreeing that he should be that guy, and that's the reason why he's out. So the good thing is Pete Carroll's got his guys. He's putting them in place. They brought in guy John Spytek, who was the assistant GM there in Tampa Bay, has brought in some guys from Denver that actually did game management consultant as well. So I think there's a few different people in place that the Raiders are going to actually, lean on. So hopefully we see a lot better game management by the Silver and Black in 2025, right? It's only one direction it can go, right? Up, because it was bad in 2024. So also, when it comes to just the NFL in general, we found out for a matter of fact that the salary cap was indeed set. We had talked about this a few weeks ago when it was estimated how much it was going to go up. NFL teams were informed on Thursday the 2025 salary cap will be $279.2 million per team. So what does that mean for the Raiders? They're sitting there at $96.4 million salary cap space and $89 million effective salary cap space, which obviously can be adjusted and inflated when they make some adjustments to different contracts, like a Christian Wilkins contract, when they do something with Max Crosby's contract, when they release Gardner Minshew, which all expectations are they're going to release him, clear up about $9 million in salary cap space. So I tell you that to say they've got plenty of salary cap space, but $279.2 million is exactly what it's going to be in 2025. For the NFL. So what does that lead to? Well, my final note I have for you here in segment number 1 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast, news and notes of the day. And I have to talk about the Chiefs. The Chiefs have told Pro Bowl guard Trey Smith he will be franchise tagged. And why do I bring that to the table? Well, there was a report a few weeks ago that they weren't going to franchise Trey Smith. They weren't going to transition tag him. And I know Adam Schefter put the tweet out, and I quote tweeted and said the Raiders should have interest. And I got hammered. I got hammered, like old school MC Hammer, like go Hammer, go Hammer, go. You know what I mean? Like I got hammered for that. Raider Nation came after your boy, and that's okay. I respect that, right? There was just a lot of feelings about no to Trey Smith. Well, now the Chiefs say yes, right? And they're hitting him with the franchise tag, which is going to make him the highest paid guard in the National Football League. Right now, the highest paid guard is the Eagles' Landon Dickerson at $21 per year. The franchise tag for offensive linemen projected just under $24 million, surpassing Landon Dickerson by a few million. So Trey Smith will be the highest guard in football. And Raider Nation, you don't have to worry. The Raiders aren't going to go get him because he's being hit with the tag by Kansas City. I'm sure they're going to do everything they can to work out a long-term deal. They have enough cap space, so they'll get it done. I'm not worried about that. But, if you were looking at Trey Smith as a possible guy that the Raiders could look at to try to upgrade the offensive line, well, he's going to be off the market as he's been hit with the franchise tag and is now going to be the highest paid guard in the National Football League. What does that mean for Matt Stafford? Well, the offensive line that is in place for the Raiders, maybe the offensive line that is the one that's blocking for him in 2025 if, in fact, the Raiders do make a trade. And it's starting to feel more and more like reality as opposed to just a rumor. I'll tell you why coming up in segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Before I get to that, though, I do want to tell you about the title sponsor of the show, which is FanDuel. When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started. There's no better place to get on it than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. And with FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game. Even if you missed the opening tip-off or want to bet on a fourth quarter comeback, you can always stay in the action. If you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay. The player prop bets are always my favorite. If you wanted to go ahead and open up your FanDuel app and check out the player prop bet that was in place for Steph Curry and his three-pointers on Thursday against the Orlando Magic, and you hit the over on it, and I don't even know what it is, but I'm sure that the over would have hit as Steph Curry went off in the third quarter, right? Put, 20-something points up on the board for the Warriors just in the third quarter just because he caught fire. He had one of those Chef Curry type nights. Yeah, so any kind of player prop bet. It didn't have to be Curry. It could be any player in the NBA. Those are a lot of fun to follow along with. And every time, a shot gets knocked down or a steal happens or a block happens or a rebound's pulled down, all of a sudden you realize you're that much closer to winning your bet. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bet if your first $5 bet wins. Visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, Raider Nation, here we go. Segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Funny that, the Matt Stafford conversation, was he going to get traded? Are the Raiders a team that is interested in him? Are the Giants a team that are interested in him? How about the Browns, the Steelers, the Titans? Any team that needs a quarterback, how interested would they be in Matt Stafford? That started out the week here in Indianapolis, Monday and Tuesday. I thought at some point it was really going to fade away, but it's really dominated what has gone on here at the Combine in Indianapolis. Usually usually when we're talking about a ton of prospects, who ran the fastest 40, who jumped the highest, who, did the best weightlifting, whatever the case may be, that has not been what the main conversation has been about. And of course, I'm here representing the Raiders, so, just doing everything for Raider Nation Radio. So, of course, a lot of the Matt Stafford conversation is coming my way, but it's still the dominating topic going on here. So as we talked on, as I wrapped up Wednesday's show for Thursday, talking about Matt Stafford and the Tom Brady meetup in Montana, and there was conversations of, is that tampering? Was it something that he planned? Was it him hosting, Matt Stafford at his spot in Montana? Did they just run into each other when they were vacationing, going to get some skiing in, whatever the case may be? It looked like the Raiders could be in a bad position if, in fact, it was deemed to be tampering and the Rams decided to pursue it. Well, my guy, Vinny Bonsignore, who's, he's Johnny on the spot. He's been all over this conversation, has reached out to a lot of his sources, a lot of people that he knows really well in both organizations, the Rams and the Raiders, has heard both sides of it. At some point on Thursday, decided, I'm going to reach out to the NFL and just see what they're saying and what the exact, I guess the rules that were put in place. Because remember, the Rams gave the agent of Matt Stafford permission to seek a trade. Well, after Vinny got off the phone with the NFL, he tweeted out from the NFL on the potential tampering violations of Tom Brady recently meeting with Rams quarterback Matthew Stafford. And I quote, "There's no issue here. The Rams gave the player and his agent permission to speak to the Raiders," end quote. What does that mean? Well, that means that even if it was Tom Brady hosting Matt Stafford and they did sit down and talk and he tried to recruit him to the Raiders, that's fine. And I don't know if the Rams did it on purpose, but they gave, and this is according to the league office, right? Again, the league office, not the Raiders, not the Rams, the league. The Rams gave the player and his agent the permission. So no blood, no foul. No harm, no foul, right? It's just simple as that. Ball don't lie. Whatever it is to get you to understand that there's not going to be any kind of penalty when it comes to this situation because, again, the Rams granted the permission to the player and the agent when my understanding was it was just the agent. And it seems like that might have been the Rams' understanding as well, so maybe they dropped the ball in that situation. But my guy Vinny Bonsignore also reported that the compensation as far as like a contract, the Raiders and Matt Stafford and his company have already come to an agreement on, right? So it really feels like this is getting closer to the finish line, right? And it's something that, again, the conversation here at the Combine is this is going to be the first big domino to drop. When this one drops, then all of a sudden the teams that are going to be jockeying for Sam Darnold and the other free agent quarterbacks like Russell Wilson, Justin Fields, and others, all of a sudden those dominoes will start to drop. And then, teams that don't get those guys, or maybe a team like the Titans or Giants, maybe they decide that none of those quarterbacks outside of Matt Stafford are quarterbacks that they'd be interested in. Now they turn their attention to the draft and say, okay, well, Cam Ward's our guy or Shedeur Sanders is our guy. I'm still lukewarm on the Matt Stafford situation. I do understand and recognize and acknowledge that he's a really good quarterback. I do understand that helps the Raiders win right away, especially if you get some good pieces around him and, the offensive line continues to get upgraded. I understand that he can help for the short term. My concern is the long term. The Raiders have been spinning their wheels trying to find their long-term franchise quarterback since Derek Carr got sat down. And some will say that he wasn't the franchise quarterback. He was just the guy that was in place for 9 years. And I don't want to disrespect him like that. I think he did some really good things for the organization. I think he stabilized the position when it was a rotating door. I don't need to go through all the names, Raider Nation. You know it already. But it was a rotating door as a quarterback. He at least stabilized that position. So my concern is if they get Matt Stafford, maybe they have him for 2 years. I'm not worried about the money. It'll probably be about $100 million guaranteed. Basically, look at Kirk Cousins' deal, right? And the guaranteed money that Kirk Cousins got from the Falcons a year ago. And that's pretty close to what it would be for Matt Stafford if the Raiders did acquire him, right? The concerns are, what does it take to get him? What are the Rams going to want in exchange, right? I'm hearing here at the Combine, a second-round pick this year in 2025 and a second-round pick in 2026. I heard a second-round pick in 2025 and a first in 2026. I was out on that. If you have to give any kind of first-round pick for Matt Stafford, no thank you. I'm out of that conversation. So they're talking about, again, from the conversations I've been hearing here in Indianapolis, a second-round pick this year, second-round pick next year is probably more like reality of what it would cost to get Matt Stafford. I guess that's doable. I'm not a fan of it. I'd much rather give up a third-round pick, but okay, whatever. Split the difference, right? Can't have everything, right? I mean, you got ice cream, you don't get sprinkles. Fine. No sprinkles for me. Okay, I can live with that. But what happens after the Matt Stafford, the expiration date hits, which, again, will be, 2 seasons maybe max? What happens then? Do you have a quarterback in place? Do you believe that a Jackson Dart or a Jalen Milroe or, and then, look, if you're giving up the second-round pick this year, you're probably not getting a Jackson Dart. You might not get a Jalen Milroe. You might get maybe a Will Howard. Do you believe that Will Howard is a guy that Chip Kelly would really like and wants to be the franchise quarterback? I don't. I believe that Will Howard's a good quarterback, but I don't believe that he's the franchise-saving quarterback after a Matt Stafford, like sit behind him for a couple seasons. So that's my concern. But that's something that they have to figure out, right? I thought when Derek Carr got sat down by Dave Ziegler and company, they had a plan in place to make sure that they didn't have a rotating door of quarterbacks. Clearly they didn't. But this really feels like this is way closer to reality than just some rumor. And I say it all the time, and Raider Nation, if you ever tune into this show, that, the Raiders are always going to be attached to another name, right? Anytime a guy becomes available or close to available, hell, I was on a radio show on Thursday, and they're like, Q, the 49ers are giving permission to Deebo Samuel to seek a trade. Wouldn't he be perfect for Chip Kelly? So I was like, look, man, the Raiders don't have to acquire everybody that's out there and available, but that's what happens. Everyone automatically ties in, you insert name to the silver and black. But this does not feel like that situation with the Rams. And even earlier this week, I thought what was going to happen is Matt Stafford was going to go out, find some money that he's willing to play for, a contract that he really likes, bring it back to the Rams, and they were either going to match it or get close. This feels like that ship has sailed. And it feels like there could be a few hard feelings with Matt Stafford and the Rams, and that the reality is that he's probably playing for another team in 2025. Could it be another team besides the Raiders? Sure. It just seems like the Raiders are the one that makes the most sense. And I know a lot of people, including myself, have said, well, what are the Rams going to do after that? And it sounds like Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams to the Rams would end up being how they try to move forward. And Aaron Rodgers at least would be motivated because he feels like he has a really good team with a really good head coach. And, of course, he brings his boy Devontae with him to L.A. And Devontae has no problem being on the West Coast, something that he prefers, though, something that he loved about being in Vegas was being back on the West Coast. And I believe he still has his house in Las Vegas. So there you go. He'd be closer to his family, and it's only a quick hop, step, and a jump from Vegas to Los Angeles. So Raider Nation, I did not think that it was going to be a week spent talking about Matt Stafford, but here we are. This is the hot topic, and this is really the hot topic when it comes to the silver and black, and that's what happens when you don't have your quarterback. I think that for my money, if it was my money, I'd rather the Raiders just go ahead and trade up and go get Shedeur Sanders because I do believe in him. Now, they have to be sold. As Mel Kiper told me on Thursday when he joined my ESPN radio show, Q, if you are not 100% sold, if you are not in love with that quarterback as an organization, do not go get him. If you're lukewarm, you got to be out. If you're, semi in, 1 foot in, 1 foot out, you got to be all the way out. You have to be 10 toes down, both feet in the water, and feeling as confident in the world that that's your guy if you're going to go make a move for him or even draft him at 6, right? If you make a move for him and he's not that guy and you weren't 100% sold on him, that's a fireable offense. And, John Spytek is a first-time GM. I mean, whatever move he makes at the quarterback position, he's going to be known for that. John Spytek traded up and got Shedeur Sanders, and it worked really well. Or John Spytek traded up and got Shedeur Sanders, and it busted. And then all of a sudden he's out, right? I mean, just that's just how reality is. And the thing about it is I keep going back to the Brock Purdy situation in San Francisco with the 49ers. If Brock Purdy never comes around for the 49ers, for John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan, those guys both probably are fired, right? I mean, they gave up the earth, they gave up the moon, they gave up everything for Trey Lance to move up to get Trey Lance, and he wasn't worth the salt. They gave him to the Dallas Cowboys for just about nothing, a cup of coffee and, a Thin Mint. And luckily for them, Brock Purdy came along as Mr. Irrelevant and saved the day. Now they're trying to push back on how much they're going to pay him. They're talking about a contract extension, but, it sounds like that they're all over the place when it comes to how much they're willing to pay him. That dude saved their jobs. If it wasn't for Brock Purdy, who, oh, by the way, has played in the Super Bowl for the 49ers, they would be out of jobs. But it just seems like people are thinking, oh, no big deal. No big deal. Anyone could be a really good quarterback under Kyle Shanahan. Could they? I know Jimmy G was in the Super Bowl with the 49ers and had a chance to win and overthrew Emmanuel Sanders, missed George Kittle when he should have. I get it. He wasn't healthy very long for the 49ers. Raider Nation, we all know about the health or non-health of Jimmy G, so there's that. But I don't sign up for anyone could be a quarterback under Kyle Shanahan. He makes you that much better. You know what he hasn't done? He hasn't sealed the deal. He hasn't won a Super Bowl with any of those quarterbacks. So I think Brock Purdy is a really good quarterback, and they're lucky to have him. Now they got to pay him. My money is, if it was up to me, if it was my decision, I'd put the chips on the table and I'd go up and get Shador. But it sounds like what they're going to do is go ahead and trade whatever the Rams want them to trade, a second-round pick or a couple second-round picks, whatever the case may be. It sounds like Matt Stafford's probably going to be a Raider sooner rather than later. And from everything I've been hearing here, that domino will probably drop in maybe a week and a half. Obviously, they can agree on a trade, but they can't actually officially have the trade go through and be 100% legit until the new league year opens up. So something to watch for, something to pay attention to. Anything could pop, and this final day at the combine for me, Friday, and go back on Saturday morning, bright and early Saturday morning. Who knows? There could be a lot of moving and shaking on the Matt Stafford front, even as early as Friday. So that's what I got for you, Raider Nation, for segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Coming up in segment number 3, one of the draft prospects that was at the podium on Thursday, got to hear quite a bit from him, was Alabama defensive back Malachi Moore. I got to get a little Roll Tide love in there, right? Alabama, Roll Tide. Yeah, Malachi Moore. You'll hear from him coming up in segment number 3 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Here we go, Raider Nation. Segment number 3 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. There's actually activities going on in Indianapolis at the Scouting Combine. Players are out there doing what they do. Friday is going to be a fun day. I'm here on Thursday night, wrapping up Thursday, heading into Friday. Friday is going to be a fun day at the Scouting Combine. Again, it's going to be the final day from the convention center where I'm at right now. It'll be the final day. Shador Sanders is going to talk. Cam Ward's going to talk. Jalen Milroe's going to talk. Ricky White, wide receiver from UNLV, is going to talk. The problem is they're all going to talk at the podium at the same time. So good luck, right? Seeing Travis Hunter. Travis Hunter was at Podium 8. Apparently Podium 8 is the one. If you're at Podium 8, you're the man, right? I mean, that was the one that Abdul Carter was at earlier in the week. Travis Hunter was there on Thursday. And Shador Sanders, I'm sure, will be at Podium 8 on Friday as well. But all those guys are going to be speaking, so it's going to be hard to be able to talk to all of them. Travis Hunter, the crowd for him was just insane. I got up from the table that I'm sitting at right now, and I walked around the corner to see what it looked like. I knew there was going to be a crowd because, look, there was a big crowd for Caleb Williams when he was here in Indianapolis. I remember that, and I was kind of in the middle of that crowd. This one was further back. It felt like, it felt like the door was outside the convention center, like they were giving away free cheese or something, right? Like it was the first of the month, and I realized that that's coming up on Saturday. Wake up, wake up, wake up. It's the first of the month. It seemed like that's what it was when I hit that corner. I ran into Kirk Morrison, who was doing radio for Sirius XM, and I was like, man, are you serious? And he said, Q, this is the fantasy day. Fantasy sports, right? All the fantasy folks, and that guy right there, Travis Hunter, he's going to be the fantasy dude, right? Offense and defense. He's like, yeah, but Thursday and Friday, that's when the podium is just full of reporters and media, and that's what it was for Travis Hunter. So there was no way that I was going to get in there and try to get into the mix and actually get a couple words in, just because it just wasn't happening. He's not performing. He's not going out there and competing, just like Shador is not competing, just like many of the top guys aren't competing here at the Combine. So it's going to be a fun, active, real busy, at least morning on Friday here at the Scouting Combine. Then it's going to start thinning out. Everyone will make their way to Lucas Oil Stadium to start to see, DBs do drills and run really fast. On Thursday, it was a lot of big guys running fast, right? Guys, big fellas running under 5 for the 40. I mean, just incredible. Jumping out of the gym. These dudes get bigger, faster, and stronger each and every year. It's incredible how well kept these guys really are, and how much in shape they really are, and put their bodies to the test out here at the Scouting Combine, just to maybe try to draw a little bit more attention. Especially when you're one of those fringe guys, get a little bit more attention, and maybe someone say, oh, you know what? Let me go check that guy again. Hold on, he ran really fast. Let me go back and look at his film. to make sure that he really is that dude. One guy that I know is that dude is Alabama defensive back Malachi Moore. Anyone who's listening to this show knows I'm a big Alabama fan. Not that I went there, not that I have any ties. I just love Alabama football, and he's a dude. He's a dude that can go, played under Nick Saban, and then obviously last season played under the new coaching staff there, that from Kalen DeBoer that came over from Washington, took Nick Saban's place when he decided to retire. So Malachi Moore was at the podium, and he had to be asked a question about different teams that he's met with, right? They always are. Here's Alabama defensive back Malachi Moore.
Can you provide us with a few teams that you have had the chance to meet with?
Yeah, I had a formal with the Eagles on Tuesday, and then I met with the Saints, the Raiders, the Jets, the Texans, Dolphins, Colts. I probably met with about 15 or so teams on Tuesday informally.
Some of those teams have a lot of former Alabama players. What would it mean to just be able to rekindle with those guys?
Definitely. I definitely hope I end up somewhere with some Alabama players on there, just because, it gives you a sense of, I would say, familiarity. And when you come in and to a new locker room, a new system, it kind of gives you a chance to be comfortable that you know somebody there or know somebody that's been through the same things that you've been through. And, every time you're on a team with an Alabama guy, you know what you're going to get out of them. You know you're going to get a great player, a great person, somebody that's striving for greatness each and every day and is going to bring the best out of their teammates.
Alabama is the powerhouse of college football over the past decade and a half now. What makes Alabama football stand out across sports and especially
I would say our mindset and the way we go to work each and every day, the work we put in the spring and the off season and even throughout the week. We know that nobody else in the country works harder than we do, and creative coach Dave Ballou and all the coaching staff are always staying on top of us and always pushing us to not be complacent. And I think it just comes from the culture that Coach Saban's built and the culture that Coach DeBoer and everybody is continuing to leave on. And it's definitely something special when you come in, and just the competitive spirit that we have there at the University of Alabama each and every day at practice, going against the best of the best, and it just drives us to continue to better ourselves each and every day.
What was the biggest transition from the Saban era to the DeBoer era?
I would say for me it was just defensively, going away from a lot of too high safety coverages, a lot of split safety coverages, quarters, and things of that nature, to more, like I said, vision-based, one high defenses and coverages. And like I said, I looked at it as a positive thing, because whether I went out last year or Coach Saban was still there and I was coming out this year, I was going to have to get used to a new coaching staff anyway. And so I just looked at it as a new opportunity for me to, like I said, get ahead of the learning curve and know how to work with new coaches and how to work with a new playbook. And like this summer and this off season, I was drilling the playbook so I could know the playbook as well as I knew the playbook for Coach Saban. So I would say that was the biggest difference for me.
When you're in those,
during my time in college, I would have to say most game speed. I would say probably Kadarius Toney. Yeah, my freshman year I saw Kadarius Toney, so he has some speed on him for sure.
When you're in those meetings,
I would just say my knowledge of the game. Coming out of high school, I really didn't know that much of football. Like, I knew the defensive side, but once I mastered the defensive side, I kind of got an opportunity to study the opposing side. I've been learning route concepts and run fits and run schemes and how offenses look and attack the defense that you're in. And one of the biggest things I've worked on from like 2023 to 2024 was I've always been a guy that's watched film and prepared really well, but sometimes I would second guess and not trust myself with what I've seen. But this year, I was able to make a lot of plays based off my film study, and that was great.
When you're in those meetings with teams and they ask you what separates you from the other guys in your position group, what is it?
I would say my ability to cover in the slot. I played star for 4 years, and like I said, I was going against Jalen Waddle, Devontae Smith. Like last year, I was guarding Malik Neighbors the whole game, so I have an experience of guarding elite players at that position, and I'm comfortable doing doing that. And so I think that's what separates me from the rest of this class. Thank you.
So there you go. Another prospect. Want to make sure I sprinkle in a few prospects here on the show that you can hear from, because, again, that's actually why I'm here. The Combine has been a lot different this year than it has in previous years as far as I'm concerned. The buzz is a little bit different than previous years. It's not quite as star-studded as normal. It seems like I said, everything has been Matt Stafford related. That's really been the big name that's been going on here, as opposed to, who's the guy that's the stud that jumped out the gym, the guy that ran the fastest 40. And maybe that'll change as more position groups go to work. But it just really seems like, man, that Matt Stafford has been the hot name here in Indianapolis. So there's still a few days left of the scouting combine. Like I said, I get back on that bird Saturday morning, head back to Las Vegas. And so, there's plenty of time for the momentum and the shift and the attention to change. But right now, that's what it is. So, of course, we'll be back here on the show on Monday. Raider Nation, have a fantastic weekend. Of course, you can check out the NFL Network and see all the activities. They do a fantastic job covering the Combine like a glove. And like I said, we'll be talking about all things Raiders, all things Combine. We'll be kind of recapping everything on Monday's show as I head to Portland for Little Q's his senior night. It's a big deal, man. Senior night. I'm excited about that. Portland State will be playing, and I will be in attendance. So come to you Monday from Portland. Until then, Raider Nation, take care of yourself, take care of your family, love on your family. Most importantly, as always, just win, baby.